Hello everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Royal Blue podcast. Hopefully a very positive one today after 3 victories in just over a week. From Everton, I'm your host Chris Beesley, joined by the Echo's Everton correspondent Joe Thomas and our Echo Sport colleague Conor O'Neill. Joe, we'll start with you first. I mean, we both observed this yesterday, this last week or so for us. It feels like we've been doing a different job.
Absolutely does, doesn't it? I started to enjoy writing match reports, which, some of them dark days of last season, even before you got to the relegation battle, there's that week when we went to Newcastle and then Spurs in space of about 5 days and another shot on target. And, you're just there in those grim 1-0 defeats where you just can't find any real positive, and you're right the same again. And then can't be relying on Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and can't be. You're just thinking, I'm stuck in deja vu. All feels like a long distance path now, doesn't it? And yeah, it feels a very different job to even parts of the beginning of this season.
Yeah.
And another very, very good win to top off a fantastic week. And, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm sure we all are. Conor, I mean, did you think we were seeing that was a great appetite actually for the stories we were writing yesterday? Do you think there was a genuine feel-good factor being brought about, an actual tangible change by these results?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's obviously been a massive mood change, hasn't he, for a few weeks now. I think even before, Patterson, the points deduction stuff, I think there was a bit of a mood change then, but obviously the points deduction fueled the fire, I think, of every Everton supporter, and the performances, the exception Man United have matched that kind of like bit of drive and ambition. And obviously, we all go to games, obviously we do different roles after the match. Obviously, I go down and speak to a player. It's quite refreshing to go and speak to a player after a win, because last season there was times where it felt like more of a counselling session with some members facing his squad when you're asking the same questions, and you need to start scoring goals, don't you? And the reply would be, if we don't, we're all going to be in trouble. And it was a little bit repetitive today. It was a little bit repetitive. I think now there's a lot more to look forward to. Obviously, I spoke to Jarrad Branthwaite yesterday, and although we erred on the side of caution, one game at a time, and we don't get too ahead of ourselves, but you can see how everyone's got that little bit of a bounce and that little bit of a feel-good factor about them. And that's becoming because of these performances. And if we're being honest, they're not vintage Brazil, Barcelona-esque performances in terms of the football and stuff like that. I think yesterday was quite a rugged affair for large parts. It wasn't a great spectacle, but the big thing is that it finds no way to win. Yeah. And when no matter what football team you are and what division you're playing, if you can find a way to win, that is all that matters. And you think yesterday was 2-0 in the end, and it looks quite comfortable, and all of a sudden everyone's up for up rather than down.
Yeah. I mean, Joe and I were actually both concerned about the good weather on yesterday afternoon. It'd been very wet, hadn't it, earlier on, and then the sun came out. Like, no, we don't want this. Is far too welcoming. But afterwards, when I was speaking to Maurizio Pochettino, he was saying, wasn't he, that he felt that Chelsea were the better side, but Everton had to find a different way to win, didn't they, in very different circumstances to Newcastle. But they got there, and in the end, it was just the same. Well, it wasn't the same scoreline, but, in the end, it was convincing again. But, I mean, what does she think, Joe, about those comments from Pochettino? I suppose he would say that, wouldn't he, that his team were the better side. But I thought it was very good the way Everton won in very different circumstances.
Yeah, it was very different circumstances for Newcastle. I think, to be honest, the comments that stuck in my mind as we were sat there waiting for the managers to come out was Sean Dyche's post-Newcastle comments. And what he said in the press conference after that game, one of the things that he said was that his favourite wins are the wins that Everton don't deserve. The ones where they don't play very well, but they still find a way to win. I wouldn't quite go as far to say that was a clear example of that, because I thought it was a bit more even than Maurizio Pochettino probably did. I thought Chelsea, for Everton created the better chance in the first half, but they didn't create a better chance in the first half of the day. So I think
they had one Palmer made force picked in for a good save, didn't have a shot from distance.
Yeah, that was it. And then Harrison had the one that went wide. I thought it wasn't a great first half, was it? I'm trying to think.
It's all too much for him this week.
270 minutes of football, just going all in different halves. No, it was a bit of a stalemate for the first half. I thought Chelsea were probably the better side. I thought Chelsea started the second half brighter, to be perfectly honest. So I do think it was a goal that came against a run of play from Doucoure, and it wasn't quite backs to the wall, but the pressure was all coming from Chelsea for that second half. So I imagine that yesterday was particularly satisfying for that, because it wasn't like Newcastle where again, in that game, Everton created the better chance in the first half, but it was still relatively even. And Newcastle just started to come up on top, and Dwight McNeil scored. After that, Everton just ran absolutely right, didn't they? I mean, it was fantastic to see. It was quite interesting because obviously Pochettino comes out and says better team, and I tried to draw Sean Dyche on there and said, he says better team. What do you think? And he doesn't like to he doesn't bite. Fair play to him. And he conceded that there were elements in which Chelsea were probably better, but it's precisely that point that you were just making then. He said the important thing was finding ways to win even when you're not on song, and that's precisely what Everton did. We've seen three very different types of wins this week, and I think that's probably the most satisfying elements. Either back at Nottingham, and Nottingham Forest was just an awkward, messy game, but whilst there was a distinct lack of quality in that game, I thought Everton were the better side. I genuinely thought Everton were the better side. They just seemed more controlled and more organised and more deliberate in what they were doing and created the better chances. Then you had Newcastle, which I think Everton were genuinely the better side, and obviously they won comfortably in the end. And then you had Chelsea, where I think it's fair to say Chelsea were on top for various bits, whilst also acknowledging that they didn't really create too many clear-cut opportunities. But again, Everton found a way, and I'm sure that Sean Dyche takes immense satisfaction when he, from leaving that stadium last night with those 3 wins.
I think the big thing was that Chelsea probably said in the first half used the ball better, and kept the ball better than Everton did. Probably put passes together, and I think Woodrick obviously had the beating of Ashley Young did on a number of occasions in that first half an hour. Everyone was sat there a little bit nervous, thinking something's going to come of this eventually. But like Joe says, they didn't really create any chances. And then second half, obviously, they had a lot of possession again, but Everton just dug in deep, didn't put bodies on the line and defended well. And I think, what we are seeing now is the mentality, isn't it, of that. You just dig in. I mean, Jarrad Branthwaite said afterwards that at half-time, Dyche said to the Everton players, I know we've got some tired legs out here, but just dig in and find a way to win. It's as simple as that, really. I almost think now Everton are reaping the benefits of them simple messages from Sean Dyche, because I don't think he's a manager who likes to overcomplicate things. No. I don't think he's a manager who overthinks things, and he just wants the simple basics to be done. And if you do them, see the best of your ability, you've got a good chance of winning. I think what we've seen in recent months is do the basics well, get them working, and it does lay a foundation to build on and pick up 3 points.
What struck me is really different. I'd be interested to see your thoughts on this. I thought there was a completely different atmosphere before the kickoff with Nicholas Jackson and Nathan Patterson. On the final whistle, just the initial reaction from the Everton players. I thought it almost felt like a very different kind of reaction to a lot of the other wins that they've had under Sean Dyche in the past 18 months. Normally, I appreciate Everton normally at different ends, but normally everyone congregates in the middle, and then they kind of go over the customary to the Gladys. But players were spread out all over the pitch on the final whistle, so then they celebrate with the stands around them, and it almost had a bit of like an end of season party kind of vibe. And I was trying to think through this morning, and I was thinking it felt like yesterday was the first win in God knows how long that the Everton players could actually enjoy. The reason that I say that is every single win under Frank Lampard and every single win under Sean Dyche so far has been a necessity. They've needed to win. They've either been trying to get out of relegation battles, get out of the relegation zone, or create daylight between themselves and the relegation zone. Same for everything. Even the two, obviously, courtesy of the points deduction. Even a bit with Newcastle, obviously, the joy of getting out of the relegation zone was also matched with relief. There's been an element of relief, and those wins have been necessities.
Yeah.
Whereas yesterday, I appreciate the results of the weekend kind of were just a little bit of a reminder that Everton still got a job to do, even with their good form, and even though the points they've truly amassed is far higher than the relegation. But it felt like yesterday was a game that they won and they enjoyed winning, and part of the reason they won it is because they started to enjoy winning, because that pressure is just starting to kind of come away from them a little bit, because this side isn't in a relegation battle unless further things outside its control happens. They've already had the greatest points deduction in Premier League history, top flight history, and they're still flying. It's only if further external forces or injuries happen and they have more really unfortunate time with those type of things that this team ends up in a relegation. I just thought that on the final list, I thought, this there's a different type of celebration here that I haven't seen in about 18 months.
Yeah, I could see that. Like you say, that end of season feel, the fact that they were going around the pitch.
It was almost like a lap of honour.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's a kick-off and everyone jumps in. But like,
Yeah, definitely, because you don't ever want to use that phrase, free hit. But after the Newcastle United, people say, no, how many points would you want to take from these 2 home games? And it just seems to be the case, doesn't it? If you have 2 home games in the space of 1 week, you very seldom win both of them. It's going back, even Howard Kendall didn't like that. Everton's most successful manager getting 2 home games under bounce in the space of a week. So it's come back with the maximum points from them, and then on the back of the Forest result the week before. Definitely, like you say, it feels like a real added bonus for them. That's probably why they were enjoying it.
I think as well, the fact that they won 2 home games is massive, because there's always, going into obviously the Forest game was a really good performance, but again, if come away, everyone went, now I just need to find a way to play at home, because, you know, you look at this season with home, you look at Brentford, you look at the Carabao Cup, obviously, you know, West Ham, Crystal Palace, they've been good on the road. I mean, they produced some really good away performances. It was the home form that was the problem, where you think, well, they need to find a way to win at home. And I think the last 2 games have shown that, you know, they can win at home. And, you know, I thought on Thursday night, the good thing was that Newcastle made 2 mistakes, essentially. Everton punished them. We don't have to see that from an Everton team. And yesterday it was more of a David Moyes' performance, wasn't it? Probably dig in, battle hard, and when your chances come, make sure you take them and you're in a position to do so. But I think the big thing is winning when you don't have to really win. I know that sounds a bit mad, but when you think of, like Joe said, in recent time, every time they seem to win, it was like, well, we can't afford to get beat today, because, you know, you think of even this season when Bournemouth come to us and got them quite convincingly 3-0. But you went into that game thinking, if they get beat today, the questions are going to grow on Sean Dyche in his future, because, and you almost start thinking maybe a little bit yourself, how can you defend this? Because if they can't beat Bournemouth at home, they've already lost to Luton at home, Wolves, Fulham, you know, it's looking a bit grim. But since then, they've really kicked on, and I think just the fact that they managed to now find a way where we're at home, it's perfect going into what's going to be a busy Christmas and New Year.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to Michael Ball before we went on air, and he felt that yesterday's points were primarily won by the defence. I know your verdict, Joe, was surrounded Jarrad Branthwaite, who of course will now be a big miss at Burnley because he's got the 5 yellow cards there. Same with Idrissa Gueye. I mean, we're running out of superlatives to describe Jarrad Branthwaite. I mean, just what a revelation he's been since he came into the side.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been fantastic. Obviously, we know Gareth Southgate was sat at the Barrages box next to Kevin Thelwell, and there are only a number of players, current England players on the periphery of the squad, players that be looking to get into it for the first time or back into it, like, maybe even like Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But, I'd be very surprised if he didn't come away from there impressed with Jarrad Branthwaite, and that his performance has been the one that perhaps resounded with him, more than many of the others. If he hadn't come to watch Jarrad Branthwaite, he would have left thinking of Jarrad Branthwaite. And if he didn't, he's a madman. So, I mean, we spoke about it a lot already, but I think that you look at the past 4 months for Jarrad Branthwaite, he wasn't even starting in the England under 21s squad for the European Championships. Spoke to Lee Carsley about that, and he was very impressed with his professionalism and his maturity. Obviously accepted that he was behind Taylor Howard-Bellis and Levi Colwill, who obviously came on yesterday for Chelsea. It feels like at some point over the next 2-3 years that England centre-back partnership there's going to be a bit of a sea change, I think. And I think that a number of players have been jockeying for position within that, likes of Levi Colwill and Mark Guehi looking very impressive, and Esri Collins having a wonderful season at Aston Villa. But Jarrad Branthwaite has gone from squad player in the under 21s to a competitive feature of that discussion, I think. Just because of his performances, you say, he's cemented a place in the England team. He's captain in the England under 21s, got a new contract, going from strength to strength. And I think I said this on one of the podcasts last week. I think Everton's biggest battle is January, regardless of what's going on the pitch, off the pitch. Well, I mean, that will have an impact. It's perhaps keeping hold of Jarrad Branthwaite. It might be repeat it, keep saying this again in the match report. But if there's any uncertainty around there, which there might be, with the takeover and things like that come January, then it might be the last chance that someone can get Jarrad Branthwaite for a little bit cheaper than what I think he will be in the summer. Because I think once Everton, if Everton get to a point where they're financially stable, and hopefully that isn't a million miles away from it, then really they can set their price. So, there aren't very many. I mean, centre backs are in high demand anyway, but a young centre back who is that tall, that strong, that quick, can play with both feet. He's got the world at his feet, hasn't he?
I mean, the biggest thing I thought yesterday was when he went down and he was in the first half. And I think Goodison was one hell of his breath while he was on the floor, because it didn't look great when he first...
It was a bit... Sorry to interrupt, but it was a bit... I think for all the progress that Everton have made this week, and for as fun as that's been, it's been 2 moments, hasn't it?
Yeah,
when
Pickford
went in and Newcastle, and then Branthwaite thought...
Because he didn't move. That was what got me. Carter just was lying there, and I was thinking, that doesn't look good. And obviously the physio come on, and even when he come back on, he was trying to run it off, and you could see he couldn't quite move. And you're thinking, oh no, because, and that's the biggest compliment you can pay him, that in the space of 4 months, he's now pretty much got Goodison holding his breath when he goes down injured. You can't say enough good things about him, can you? Because he's just he's got everything. And I know we said this on Friday, and we got a little bit of stick, I think it's safe to say, from some of our viewers on Facebook. Yeah. Perhaps we were auctioning Jarrad Branthwaite off, trying to sell him. We definitely weren't. But when you think of John Stones and where he was at this point in his career, Everton, he would by no means anywhere near the player that Jarrad Branthwaite is at the minute. And if this is Branthwaite's still developing, then he's going to be one hell of a player. And the task for Everton is to keep him and build the team around him and all these other young players that we've got, like James Garner and Onana, because the future is bright. I mean, you do look at that spine and think, well, there is a lot of good talent there and a lot of good players, and the nucleus of a really good team.
One of the things that I liked as well about this was after the game, but obviously he received treatment on the pitch, and then he was still hobbling, I thought, going into half time. So I reckon he must have had a bit of a chat with the medics during the break, and on the final whistle, one of the first things he did was went to the touchline and shook hands with every one of the medical team, nice. The fitness team that were there, maybe acknowledging that they kind of patched him up or something like that. It's just a little bit. So obviously, Connie, you with him after the game, it feels like he's quite a grounded character as well, which just only adds to...
Yeah. And you don't know whether now, and this, when you talk about the suspension, it's not great for Everton, but it may not be a bad thing if he misses out next week, given the games that are to come. You don't want to write games off.
Just give him a little breather.
But you give him a little breather, because obviously you got Fulham in the Carabao Cup, which is a massive game, transfer them to enter a semi-final. Then it's Tottenham, Man City, Wolves in a tight period. 3 really tough games, which Everton need the best team on the pitch for. Where they may need a little break next week, might do them the world of goals and give them a chance to reset.
Well, certainly, it's an interesting one. Credit goes to Marcel Brands, because interestingly, John Stones was David Moyes' parting gift to Everton, the final signing that he made, although he'd never actually played until Martinez was there. And Marcel Brands not only just identifying Jarrad Branthwaite as a raw teenager who made just a clutch of appearances for Carlisle United, his early games at Everton, he wasn't anything like the player he is now, is he? But then Brands took him again to PSV on loan, and he's just come back a totally different animal, really. I mean, so for all the stick, and obviously a lot of that could be vindicated. It came Marcel Brands' way, as a top marks for him. He could make. I mean, I was going to go potentially auction him off. I was going to say he could make Everton a lot of money, but what he could do is, along with those young players you mentioned there, Connor, could be the spine round a potentially exciting young team to move to the new stadium. I mean, we move on to other players who featured prominently. I mean, again, at that back four, Vitaliy Mykolenko, Joe. I mean, it's just been talking about transformations. If you compare what he was like, say, a year ago to the performances, maybe even the end of last season, the performances that the team are getting out of him now.
It's quite interesting. I think there was a big interview with him in programme talking about how he's had a hip injury that since early 2022, he's only just started to kind of come, feel like he's got the getting his true fitness back. It just reminds you, obviously, there's always so many things going on that you just have absolutely no idea about. Obviously, we know about his family situation and what's going on in Ukraine. So, I mean, he's been a revelation. It's been quite nice as well, because obviously what stood out a month ago is his attacking prowess. Obviously, he scored those 2 early goals, and he gets Brighton and Crystal Palace, and then he comes back to remind us about how good defensively he is, and he was excellent again. And I thought there was one goal-saving tackle he put on in the second half. I don't know where he came from. He just came from nowhere to tackle someone behind and get a block in, and it was huge. And it seemed to spark this, almost like this mad 15-minute period where he was just everywhere. He was just everywhere. You look at the players that he has shackled this season so far. Like, I thought he did an excellent job on Saka against Arsenal. Obviously, it's easy to overlook these things because obviously Everton still lost these games. But I thought, he largely kept Saka under wraps at the time when Arsenal were absolutely flying. He did an absolutely wonderful job on Mo Salah, and again, obviously Mo Salah scored 2, but the circumstances have been well covered. Those late goals and perhaps the unfairness with which Everton were treated in that game before it got to that stage. But again, I thought he did a wonderful job on Salah, and he's just adding wingers and upcoming stars to his list of players he's kept under wraps, hasn't he? Obviously, Gordon had a little bit more joy on Thursday once he left Coleman and switched over to the upper flank. But yesterday I thought he did a reasonably decent job on Cole Palmer, and it's quite clear what Cole Palmer wants to do because he did it time and time again. He was kind of side from the right and curl one over his left, and he got close with a couple, but. Yeah, Mykolenko was absolutely superb. Tarkowski was very good. I like Nathan Patterson when he came on. He's got an opportunity. James Coleman's touch and go for Burnley. They're not quite sure. Ashley Young, both he and Sean Dyche both said they hoped it was nothing serious yesterday. Obviously, that'll be analysed over the coming days to see what he does. But it might be that Dyche's hand is forced and Patterson has to come in against Burnley. It'll be a big opportunity for him. Like, I think we all, we've mentioned it so many times that we'd like to see him given an opportunity. And there have been times in his Everton career already when he has taken the opportunities when he's got them. It's been injuries that have held him back, not form that have led to him coming out the side. But hopefully Burnley will be an opportunity for him. Hopefully it'll be one that he takes, because again, we talk about players for the future. We've got 35-year-old Coleman, 38-year-old Young, both out of contract at the end of the season. Wouldn't be hugely surprised if Coleman can probably stay for as long as he wants. But it's felt for a long time like Dyche perhaps doesn't quite trust Nathan Patterson. He goes out of his way to mention about him positively in press conferences when he gets the chance to, but he hasn't really backed that up necessarily with the opportunities he's given to him. But again, if Patterson can get in and cement his place there and show that he's learned over the 18 months he's been at Everton, and it's another area that Everton go from strength to strength going to next season. It's another area that doesn't need addressing in the transfer market, so they don't need to spend money. And it's another young player that's forming a core, a nucleus. And we writing about this even around the time of Bournemouth, saying there are things to still get positive about. You look at Branthwaite, you look at Garner, you look at McNeil. And a few others and their ages. And Patterson's amongst that little clutch of players there that could be the foundation for... The foundation's being built now, but these could be the players that build the next layer on top of it and really help make this progress sustainable.
Yeah, I think it's well the same as Mykolenko. I think me personally got to eat some humble pie. I think I have major doubts about Mykolenko.
I think a lot of us did
the season. And one of the games that always stood out to me was Doncaster away, where I think to say one of the worst players in the pitch that night, and Everton were playing bottom of League 2. Yeah, and I remember coming home from that. Me and Joe asked, I took a scenic, I think it's safe to say, from Doncaster that night, Joe.
Well, scenic. It would have been scenic if it was inspired.
At 1 o'clock in the morning. But I remember you think, well, where does he really go from here? Because he just really struggled there against League 2, and he's out injured, and unless you're young at the time, was getting favoured over him to play left back, and you're thinking, well, where does he really go from here? And obviously he stuck at it, and he's now reaping the benefits. And the big thing for me was when they played Liverpool, actually, Van Dijk said after, Van Dijk name checked how well he done against Salah. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's something, because that shows that Liverpool's best players, as they say, that lad at Everton, they're just done really well against our best player. And also the fact that he seems to have this unfortunate way. Most weeks he marks either team's best player. Yeah. like he always seems to end up with either the most informed player of the opposition or the best player of the opposition. Yeah. And even sometimes when we was just think like, my kind of stuff like the bang average, the winger, so I think he's done remarkably well.
You mentioned Van Dijk there. I mean, obviously, no stretch. Obviously, Liverpool top of the league. I don't want to talk about them, but top of the league. But Mykolenko and Branthwaite both be starting right now.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would dispute that.
We have to bring back our Liverpool end of season and the year 11 that Mr. Prentice used to do.
But I think he's done remarkably well, hasn't he, Mykolenko? I think when you look at where he was, where he's been, even like Saka, you know, he's done really well. He Saka, didn't he, for Arsenal when everyone had concerns that day, and you know he now looks at a fully functioning Premier League defender, both from an attacking point of view and defensive point of view.
Yeah,
and I think that's the biggest thing as well, because he was always questionable about him going forward. But I think he's really come on leaps and bounds in recent weeks with Barrett. I think he's one of them as well, as he's clearly got in there and he's listened to what Sean Dyche had to say, what Sean Dyche's coaching staff want to do with him, and now the benefits. He's probably a bit of a poster boy in terms of, if you do listen to Sean Dyche, Ian Bowen and Steve Stone, take their advice on board, do what they tell you to do. This is the end product, and you know they probably should be all able to have placed around the dressing room. Want to do the same?
Yeah. The other end, our regular guest Gavin Buckland unfortunately can't be with us today, but he was waxing lyrical, wasn't he, about Jack Harrison in the support striker role. He wanted to see that continue against Chelsea. It didn't. Jack was back out on the wing. Abdoulaye Doucoure was back there supporting Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I said, Joe, after the game, I mean, I've compared him. So Everton haven't had this for a long time now, since the David Moyes era, whether it be Tim Cahill or even Marouane Fellaini towards the end there. Somebody who can knit that attack and midfield together and provide those goals from the attacking midfield position. That's, Gav's not here to defend himself and say why he made a strong case for Jack Harrison there, but that's why Abdoulaye Doucoure is in that position.
Yeah, I mean, he knits things together in a very different way to think how Gav was meaning.
Yeah.
He's someone that, Everton's centre midfield and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, there's often quite significant gaps between them, and the only way that they're filled is because Abdoulaye Doucoure has just absolute boundless energy. His fitness levels must be really.
He's the wrong side of 30 now.
He is not quite box to box, but I mean he's 30 yards out from Everton there. He's all the way to to Chelsea's goal, and he got another goal there, didn't he? I mean, it's just so physical and strong, isn't he? And he's quite quick. I think he's just someone that's really. I think he's a type of almost attacking midfield support striker. I don't think many Premier League defences come up against very often at the minute. It feels like we're living in an era of number 10s.
Yeah.
And Abdoulaye Doucoure is a very different challenge, because he's someone that will just run straight at the heart of you. And I think he's someone that there's probably a lot of naivety and complacency around when other teams are lining up and thinking, well, perhaps don't need to do the hard yards on him because they don't believe he's necessarily got the technical ability. And, he might not have the same levels of technical abilities as some of the other players that we've seen who do so well in that role, likes of, Eberechi Eze we saw at Palace, or even someone like a Cole Palmer from yesterday. But what he doesn't quite have there, he just makes up with absolutely everything else that he does. And again, we're in danger of repeating ourselves, but nobody has been more important to the survival of to Everton under Sean Dyche and Abdoulaye Doucoure, and bringing him from the cold. Obviously, he was frozen out under Lampard. Was a decision that just had immediate rewards for Dyche, and he just keeps repaying. And you think back to January of last year, and you've got Doucoure not being involved, and you've got Dwight McNeil on the periphery really struggling. And you look at those two players and everything that they've done since under Dyche, like it's absolutely phenomenal. The goals they've scored and the roles that they've played, and keeping Everton up and then laying this foundation for this season. It was quite one thing. Obviously, we spoke about Jack Harrison, the through ball he played for Dominic Calvert-Lewin against Newcastle on the pod on Friday, and I was saying how it's been a long time since I've seen anybody play such a cute ball from this Everton side that kind of helped Calvert-Lewin break through a defence. Obviously didn't take that opportunity. It's quite nice that we saw very similar again for Abdoulaye Doucoure's goal yesterday, because it came from Dwight McNeil again. That just little cute through ball. I don't know if maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's these players are just starting to kind of have belief that they have the freedom to do this. Maybe for 10 months or so, the bliss to miss that Sean Dyche has been trying to instill in his team has been, because the pressure's been so high on all these players, and because a lot of them are fighting for their Premier League careers, both in terms of against relegation and to be kept on and not sold at at a club which has been willing to listen to offers for so many of its players, maybe those words have been a little bit hollow, and maybe it's only now that he's really started to instill that mentality because they're getting the results that are giving them the platform to express themselves more. And we're seeing this same group of players start to evolve and play different types of football, and they grind out different types of wins as well, and it's just so good to see. It's still an Everton side that really only has a plan A, only has one way of playing, but then it seems to be able to adapt that. It seems to be able to survive kind of micro changes to it. So if someone like, obviously, we saw, if James Garner comes out, so Coleman comes in, a younger Harrison get moved around, it has one system of playing, but it seems to have multiple ways of playing that system, which is probably the very, very best that Dyche can do at the minute, given the limited resources at its disposal. And he deserves a lot of credit for that.
I think the best thing about Doucoure is, and probably the most frustrating thing at times about it, is unpredictability.
Sure.
You honestly don't always going to do it. So the opposition can't plan for him because ultimately the elevation, and there was a time yesterday, I think, where he got the ball and he had three options and picked up completely the wrong pass and give the ball away cheaply, and that's what he can do. He is capable of not being able to play the simple way perhaps, but on the flip side, the energy, the drive, the determination, and also now his finishing ability, which is clearly come on leaps and bounds in recent months. You just make him, one of the standout names. And like I say, I think that the best thing about him is the unpredictability, although it can be frustrating at times because you don't quite know what he's going to do. And the most simple thing perhaps looks the hardest thing for him to do. But I think he's, the way I've been fortunate to speak to him a few times. Yeah. Obviously, the question always gets asked about what Sean Dyche done to him or what's gone on. And I always think it's like he's so grateful he was given a second opportunity. I think he genuinely did think that his Everton career was over. Yeah. And I think he genuinely did think that, he was on his way in January, or he basically was, if he didn't leave, was going to be spending the next 4 months of the season frozen out and probably training by himself and not getting a look in. And for Sean Dyche to come in and give him that other opportunity and basically kind of go, well, the way I want to play, you can be a focal point, a key person behind. It's just blossomed. He already wrote his name in the club's history books and the goal he called up on the final day of last season. But now, hopefully, he'll be doing it for the right reasons rather than just kicking them from the Premier League.
I think it's important that kind of humility is recognised as well, because I remember, it feels like so long ago now, but obviously summer of last year, being out in America with Everton and speaking to Doucoure, and kind of back then he was saying about how much he wanted, he loved the club and wanted to commit his long-term future. And okay, obviously this is a player that, at the time would have been, 30 and 1 year on his deal, and that, like, obviously, for his own reasons, for his own personal reasons, he'll be wanting to try and say the right things to do that. Obviously, things didn't work out for him, but under Lampard, but he kept at it, took the chance when Dyche came. But even after Brighton, that huge win back in May this year, the one that made sure that Everton's fate lay in their own hands. And obviously, again, he scored in that game. That's right. Just another one of the big performances from him at a crucial time. And it wasn't long after that Everton, renewed his contract, given him an extra year. But I can remember speaking to him after that game, after about his contract situation, and even then he wasn't sure. Like, he wasn't taking, he wasn't going, look at the role I'm playing here, and it's with Edge and Everton side. Look at the 2 goals I've just scored it. Europa League chasing Brighton. Like, surely they're going to keep me. He was there saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's clear that he always wanted to stay. And I think there's a degree of, I don't think it was self-interest. I think there's a degree of I think his affection for Everton is genuine, and I think we're probably seeing that in his performances at the minute and his celebrations. Like, celebrations are genuinely joyous. You ain't getting bored of scoring, is it?
Well, on the flip side of that, he even celebrated ushering the ball out for a goal kick when Mudryk had it, and he sort of ushered him out and Everton got the goal kick. And I remember Amadou Onana came over and there was a chest bump between the so it's showing they're not just celebrating scoring goals. There's that will to defend, Connor, that it's on both sides of the pitch.
And I think as well, just going back to the contract situation, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because there was clearly a lot of talks got on Everton over someone who they can keep and who they can't keep, and there was clearly I think some tough decisions made. I think there was probably maybe one or two who might have been offered deals, but the club were in a position to quite offer them deals, given the way. And I think it's quite telling that he was one of the ones who they were so quick to tie down, because they understood the importance, they understand that. And Sean Dyche probably the main one for saying, we've got to keep this lad, he's been instrumental to how good we've been in staying up. We can build foundations and we've got him playing. So I think that's a big indication of how highly thought of he is under Sean Dyche, that he wasn't in that bracket of where a bit of uncertainty, perhaps he might be one of them who, well, in the normal time we would have offered one, but these aren't normal times for us and we've got to make harsh cuts and look to move elsewhere.
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting things we're going to see now is what's going to happen with Vitaliy Mykolenko, because obviously his contract expires in the summer. And Sean Dyche has been very, very vocal about praising Idrissa Gueye over recent weeks and his performances, and he's someone that I think probably assumed that Everton wouldn't offer a new deal because he's on huge wages
At his age.
But again, you start to look at the performances, and it starts to he's making the case again for it to be. There's a lot of things to work themselves out behind the scenes. Obviously, we know that that we don't know what's going to happen with the takeover yet. We don't know about deductions. We don't know about profit and sustainability for 2023, which gets assessed in the first fortnight of the new year. So obviously, they probably can't make a lot of these decisions quite yet. But at some point, like Doucoure clearly did at the back end of last season, there comes a point where it's less, can we afford to keep him? It's more, if we get rid of him, what can we afford to replace him? And does that come to anywhere near the same standard? And Idrissa Gueye is probably still, he's still got a lot to do, but maybe just start to make it, maybe, I don't know if he'd want to stay, I'm not sure, but just start to make that case. It's going to be really interesting to see how Everton deal without him during the African Cup of Nations.
Yes.
So obviously, Onana came in, did very well yesterday, and you've got that Onana, Doucoure, Garner access will probably give a little bit of freedom to take their time when they make a decision over Idrissa Gueye. It'll be interesting. Again, one of the big factors will probably be where Everton are come March next season, because centre midfield is a type of position where you could, if you've got a couple of months leading up to the summer and you're going to be safe in the Premier League, well, you can probably lay the foundations to move for a fourth and a fifth your choice centre midfielder on a free, and whereas obviously we can be proactive on that front and perhaps get a bargain. But if Everton end up in a relegation battle to the end of the season like they have in the past two, you can't do that, and then you're having to kind of make last minute decisions and be reactive rather than proactive.
I think as well, it'd be quite interesting to see what Sean Dyche's thoughts were on that little chest bump. Given what he said, Lewis Thomas celebrating post-match, he wasn't too keen, was he?
He doesn't like people celebrating in games.
The way he calls it, and it's a great delight in the way it was old-fashioned. Dobbin celebrated the goal in a good old-fashioned way, so we're going to see what he thinks of that little chest bump game from his two midfielders. Yeah,
well, we'll just finish on Dobbin. See a lovely moment, Joe. First Premier League goal, first goal for Everton as well. He's had to work hard, that loan spell at Derby County last season. So, of course it was of course he was going to enjoy every moment of it, wasn't it? It was such a special moment for him.
Yeah, it really was. He deserves it because, he's a player that, it was a difficult summer for Everton. And at the beginning of the summer, he wasn't the academy player on the top of everyone's mind. There was Tom Cannon, who obviously played his first game for Leicester after coming back from injury the other day, and still think will be a very good footballer. He had like to stand up.
You're not giving that chairmanship of the Tom Cannon fan club or just yet?
I'm not. No, I still
just expect the Christmas kind off the family.
I still think it's going to be a decision that Everton end up regretting, albeit probably won't quite be able to make that decision until we see how closely was it. If they fall within the parameters of profit and sustainability for 2023 by 5 or 6 million because they got it for Tom Cannon, then there's a
that could be the greatest decision.
Exactly. So, but you had him. You got Sam Mills and Lewis Warrington, who were highly thought of, obviously gone out on loan, but they were ahead of Dobbin in the pecking order. You probably had a little bit of frustration over Isaac Price leaving. A lot of hope, and there's a lot of hope for Francis Okoronkwo. Dobbin, did the hard yards, to use John Dyche's phrase, at Derby. But I mean, his numbers weren't exceptional. He didn't go to League One and tear it apart. But clearly, Dyche saw something that he liked over the summer, and he was one that stayed in and around the first team squad. That again has to be an acknowledgement that some of this was necessity. It's not as if there were a huge amount of options. And at the time, Dwight was injured. Danjuma was came and picked up an injury just as he was coming. There was a lot of flux.
We didn't see Calvert until sport.
We didn't know exactly, So, but obviously he was on the periphery. And he stayed on the periphery. Then September comes round. Sorry, not September. November comes round. He's back in the under 21s. He's back in the under 21s playing 4 or 5 games in a row, and you looked at that and you thought maybe just as a few more players are come back to match fitness, that maybe there's an acceptance that he's an academy player at best, and they maybe might even look to loan him out in January or something like that. But since he's gone down there, you can understand for him he might have seen that as a step back, being on the bench so often in the Premier League. But he's been brilliant. He scored the goal against Athletic, the Spanish club. Scored in the rout at Southampton. He played against Monaco and absolutely tore them apart. Didn't get a goal, but they're at Walton Hall Park, and he was a class above everybody else on the pitch. And it was really refreshing to see that he's gone down there. He's been given his chance to come straight back up. Well, he's taken it. He hasn't so much gone down to the other 21s and sulked. He's gone down there, tried his best, and got his reward. It's another fantastic moment, and it's quite an interesting one because for all the concern people might look at Everton's academy and what's happened to it with the players that have left and how they've left over the last year or so. And whilst one of the big things with Sean Dyche has often been the claim that he doesn't bring young players forward and give them opportunities, well, one, you got Dwight Mykolenko, who he gave his big chance to as a teenager at Burnley, and we can see he's still very young, but the impact he's having for Everton now, again under Dyche. You look at Ellis Sims, Lewis Dobbin had that wonderful moment on Sunday. Ellis Sims had exactly the same for him. Yeah. And again, some of these round the necessity, it didn't work out with Ellis Sims and things like that. But players are still getting these moments, and it is very nice to see it. And I think that it's another area that injects, it's another avenue to inject positivity into the club at the minute. Young players that have been in the academy for years coming in and doing well. Obviously Sims and Branthwaite are players that have been acquired later on in their teenage years, but Dobbin's another Everton player that is coming through the ranks. He's got a moment. What happens next? I don't know, but even if nothing happens next, he's got that moment, and Dyche gave it to him, and we've all enjoyed it. I think we're all really, really pleased for Lewis.
I think the big thing, it was a great moment, and one that was one that probably lived in memory for a long time. Yeah. But the one thing that stood out for me was what Dyche said post-match, where he thought about last time Lewis Dobbin in the goal, and he said about, we were thinking him or Danjuma, basically, we were going to bring on because he obviously needs to freshen things up. I thought it was quite telling that Dobbin got the nod over Danjuma to come on. I think, it was maybe a little bit of a push towards Danjuma to maybe buck up his ideas, and he's not quite maybe showing the same attitude as what Lewis Dobbin is. I mean, we don't know that, but I just thought that was quite telling that in that time, Dyche, Steve Stone and Wong felt Dobbin was the better option than Danjuma. And obviously, someone who struggled for game time, Danjuma in recent weeks, when stuff like that starts to happen, you think...
It's interesting with Danjuma, isn't it? Because at this point, you start to probably ask a few questions. One thing I'll probably say that...
If Everton weren't winning, we'd be asking a lot more questions.
Well, that's partly what I was going to say. The one thing I think about Danjuma is he's probably the type of attacking player that you'd want to bring on whenever they're chasing the game. But the reality is, it's been quite a while since I've been chasing the game. When you look at when you want him coming in, it probably might not be when you 1-0 up trying to fight for the last 10-15 minutes to hold on something like they have been like they were against Chelsea, like they were into that stage against Newcastle, like they were against Forest, like they were against Palace, like they were against Brighton. These probably are game situations where you would necessarily turn to Danjuma. But that being said, the lack of opportunity has been given out is I think we're all noting it, aren't we, from watching it with interest.
I think it's quite interesting because it was the Brentford game when he first dropped out, wasn't it, from the team, and then obviously given us a chance against Burnley in the Carabao Cup. I don't think he set the world like that. I think he sent it was a bit of a failed audition, wasn't it, in terms of felt even he was playing to get back into the shoulder. I was just thinking we haven't really seen him since.
Well, the fact that we know he seems to be behind Jack Harrison in that support striker role. So, you know, at Doucoure, you got Harrison, and then we assume it's Danjuma. That again, you struggle to see where the opportunities are going to come from for him, unless injuries and suspensions pave his way. Whilst McNeil and Harrison don't have many suspensions, haven't got many yellow cards. I don't think there's a suspension that's a worry. Teams are going to come thick and fast, but I think Danjuma's in that category where he may well get a chance in the coming weeks just because of the amount of games that are coming up, and he probably needs to take it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it would have been too much of a headline writer's dream for Dobbin to hit the knockout blow against the equine aggressors of Newcastle United. I put that in my analysis. But just before we do finish, I just want to, all joking apart, obviously you got the goal against Chelsea there. Just before we finish, on a more serious note, for the second weekend on the run, there were poverty-shaming chants from opposition supporters in an Everton game. Saw it at Nottingham Forest. I wrote a piece about it. Then Joe was saying about how it's a very serious issue. Various categories for we hate crimes in the UK, and obviously somebody's city of residency doesn't fall under that. I mean, but it was poignant, wasn't it, that we saw when Goodison Park on Sunday when Chelsea fans were coming out with that chant, and the food bank's logo came up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realise at the time, but I think that's an actual tactic now that's being used. That when the poverty shaming starts, that the club starts to promote fan-supported food banks, in the contrast between a Merseyside-based supporter-led initiative between Liverpool and Everton that's done so much good for the region and trailblazed around the country. The contrast between that and an away fan base singing those songs, couldn't be more stark. And it's a very effective way of trolling the trolls, I think. But yeah, it's just miserable. There's no need for it. And, I know people try and put these in the category of football banter, but relishing in other people's poverty is in difficult life situations. It's just abhorrent, and it just seems to be a thing that a lot of fan bases feel like they can label the Merseyside clubs, and I think it's certainly not pleasant, and I think particularly should be necessarily be acceptable. And you've got grown men and women there that have put all that money and effort and organisation into travelling up and down the country to come and watch a football match and decide that that's what they want to spend their time doing. It's pathetic, isn't it?
It's a sad and like it's a society, isn't that we live in now? Unfortunately, these things have become the norm. Obviously, it's not just Everton fans who've been, targeted this Liverpool fan of the wars, whether it's some of them in recent years.
Going up for
a long time, like not just recent years, for a long time. And, I think, it's just really sad, and you hope someday something is done about it, because it's just ridiculous. I mean, there wasn't even a minute on the clock yesterday when Chelsea started singing that. You just thinking, what did they get out? Why are they getting out tonight? Why don't they just concentrate back on the team? Why are they so obsessed with poverty shaming? A group of individuals from where they're from, and it's just a shame, isn't it? Because Joe says they have fans supporting food banks. Obviously, their motto is hunger doesn't wear any colours, and wear a colour sign at Liverpool. No one looks at the Merseyside divide or the football divide. It's all helping others and giving where you can. It's just a pity that other clubs in the Premier League don't follow suit, because there will be a better place if they did start following that motto.
Yeah, we could call it karma, but moments after you took that footage, Everton actually went ahead, Joe. So maybe
that's quite interesting. I just saw Jamie Carragher called out yesterday on Twitter as well. I thought that was quite interesting. That because it's clear now, isn't it? It's clear as day. Everyone can hear what's going on, and it's becoming more and more. Something needs to be done about it. What will be done, we don't know, but something does need to be done about it. And like I say, if only the rest of the football followed by the motto, the Merseyside fans supporting food banks, I think the world will be a better place.
Yeah, it was a good point to end on there. And thank you for joining us today. I've been your host, Chris Beesley, been joined by Joe Thomas and Conor O'Neill. This has been the Royal Blue Podcast.